Geek Tank is supported by listeners like you.
Get your Uru hammers and your nailer guns, a sonic screwdriver or a sword +1. Use a Larian steel, it'll get you to come to the Geek Tank, to the Geek Tank, to the Geek Tank. The Rocky Mountain Geek Tank.
Hi, I'm Guy.
Hi, I'm Troy.
Hi, I'm Chelsea.
And this is Geek Tank Live.
The We All Die in the End size podcast.
Oh my god, Troy, spoilers!
We're broadcasting live from Denver, Colorado, and our favorite Starbucks at First and Wadsworth. Mm-hmm. And our show today is...
Sponsored by...
Geekway Homes.
Yay!
They live right over
If you're
there.
a geek and you need a home, you should contact Geekway Homes.
Yes, you can contact them by opening a hailing channel to www.geekwayhomes.com.
Woohoo!
Also, we picked up a new sponsor, but they haven't given us direct instructions on what to push.
So our
I know that.
instructions are...
So I know they're
This is what
involved.
happens when I leave y'all alone for too long.
No adults.
Nobody knows what's going on.
I know that they're in charge of MalCon, which is Myth and Legends Con, and that takes place on August 9th through 11th of this year, but I don't know if that's their next upcoming thing.
No,
Okay.
because we know also are in charge of Hexacon. So,
Yeah.
But yes,
Quite a
they're
few
new
things.
sponsors
Plug
too.
both.
So our podcast is sponsored by both of
We
them.
got two sponsors.
We have two
We have
whole
two
sponsors.
sponsors.
Two whole
Oh
sponsors.
my god, you guys.
I know.
We're actually
Isn't that
doing
awesome?
things.
Look at us.
We should
being
probably
sponsored and
get
stuff.
our stuff
Figure.
together then.
Yeah, I know. We're going to act like adults now.
Oh no.
Like grown-ups.
I actually
Good
have to
luck with
schedule
that.
things.
Anyway,
So our question that we're going to look at today is, are spoilers bad? And if so, why are they bad?
we also have kind of like a tangential one because we were talking about this in our chat room about this because we've got the tangential one about this, which is the what started this was discussing this because that fantasy show, that
Game of
fantasy, yeah, thank you,
Thrones.
Game of Thrones
Game
has
of
started
Thrones.
its newest
They're in
season.
they just
It is-
finished their second episode of their last final
Their
season.
final season. There are only 8 episodes, and let me tell y'all right now, it is intense. It is
Well, there
so
are tents,
good.
but there's also castles. So it's in
Yes.
castles, it's in tents,
But
it's
it's
in
mostly
caves.
intense.
Okay.
I don't want to know what they're doing in those tents. I
Well,
watched
that,
the first season.
interestingly
I mean-
enough, brings up one of the spoilers that happened in the last episode.
Right.
Lots of tents.
Well, I got spoiled for me, but luckily for me, it was one of those things that when it happened, I'm like, well, that's nothing. Why are people upset about this? But
But
I'm not going to spoil it for everybody.
anyway, what I'm still stuck at like third season because I had HBO for
That means
one
lots
year,
of people are still alive for you.
right? So yeah, lots of people are still alive.
Except Ned Stark died so fast.
Well,
yeah, well, I lost.
Here's a spoiler. If
You know,
there's a
his
movie,
problem was
he's
that
played by Sean Bean.
he
Yeah.
just got his biggest problem was he was just so like crazy that he just lost his head.
I
That was his
think
biggest
a
problem.
movie that Sean Bean lives in. That's the spoiler.
That's the
Is when he
spoiler.
lives.
He started a campaign so that he could live. It was
Right.
great.
Nice.
It was
Anyway,
a great campaign.
So for you've got a long
Great.
way to catch up and not enough time to do it. And
Well, I'm not really worried.
mean,
But I mean, my whole thing is that like I only had HBO when Xfinity, which is my local cable company, offers it as a package deal. So like I get it sporadically whenever it's convenient for my cable company to give me HBO, and it was only convenient for 1 year, which means that I am like season 1 of Westworld and season 3 of Game of Thrones, and I'm like stuck in all of these spots.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford to keep all these streaming services, and I'm a
Gotcha.
Trekkie. So the only streaming service that means anything to me is CBS All Access.
And thank you, by the way, for not spoiling any of the new.
They all die in the end.
I
Discovery.
just lost it. Not disco, but
Orville?
I'm
Pizza?
so tired. What's the old school show? The Twilight Zone.
oh, the new one, the new
The Twilight
Zone.
Zone. Yeah. I'm like, this is the problem with all these streaming services, right? Is like Twilight Zone is out now, and I do want to watch the second season of Discovery, but I'm impatient, so I was waiting for it to wrap up because I'm awful at waiting. That's why I have Netflix, because I can just watch shows in one go, and then I do binge watch. I just do. So the problem with all these streaming services is like you're trying to get all these different shows, and I'm waiting. So this is why I wait for them all to end, and then I'll buy a streaming service for a month. I will knock it out, and then I will cancel it and buy the other streaming service and knock it out and cancel it. Because it's so expensive now, and with the Disney one coming out as well, it's going to be a nightmare.
Well, the good news is Disney owns everything, so that should cover everything in one foul swoop right there.
Oh God!
Until they decide to start making other offshoot Disney channels.
Or you'll have to have Disney XD streaming
I also
service.
think it's interesting because there's not one streaming service that covers like one specific drama. Like Game of Thrones is definitely fantasy, but there are other fantasy shows out there that are done by like Stars and
You know what? That would
Cinemax
probably be
and
the best
CBS.
way to handle it, is if you had sci-fi streaming
Yeah.
and like drama streaming
Well, that's why I
and
love
sports streaming. Because that's what I really wanted out of cable 100 million years ago when we talked about I want a la carte cable.
Yeah.
Because cable kept coming out and we would go, no, this isn't the way we want. Well, if you pay an extra $9.99, you can get these 20 channels. But you always had to get like 20 channels of NBA basketball. And
Why
I'm like,
are
I
there
don't
so
care
many
about
sports?
basketball.
But I'm sure that people in the sports understand that question,
Right.
and they know the answer.
Because they would
To them-
want
to them
20
it's like,
episodes,
yeah.
or their basketball thing, and they end up getting stuck with 20 channels of science fiction.
But that's how they
and they're
can.
like, they don't care.
But that's how they can guarantee they have us as customers. Otherwise, the sports channels lose us as customers, and the people that are only into sports and not into the sci-fi.
Yeah, but it was a waste, right? Because, I mean, you think
It's a
about
waste of our money,
Right.
but not to them.
Well,
to
Right.
them, it's a game.
In a
so.
world where everything's kind of on demand, right? So you could log on to ESPN and watch your specific sports, and usually there's a payment process that you can do that with.
That's a good question.
You know, with CBS
Star
All
Wars
Access,
on
you
this.
have that anywhere, so you can watch Discovery like on your cell phone. I watch Netflix on my cell phone. I'll watch documentaries while I'm working because I can listen to most of it. Because documentaries are mostly listening with the added visual, so I'll usually listen to them while I'm working, and I can watch a little bit if I'm bored. So I appreciate that there are so many on-demand services now, but it's kind of frustrating when you can't like pick and choose your packages when cable is, I'm sorry, so expensive.
Well, and I actually had that same thing going on the other day. I was cleaning the kitchen, and it took 2.5 episodes of The Expanse to clean the kitchen.
There you go.
And I was working really hard to clean the kitchen. I was getting down and scrubbing everything down. But it's like one of those things. It was like I knew exactly how long it took. Oh, by the way, on Amazon Prime, they don't bleep out the F word. It's awesome. That was, I
That's why,
love it. I was like,
honestly,
this was awesome.
I do love having
Eva Sorella
Prime
is just
because,
like dropping the F bomb all over the place. And I'm
Wait.
like, woot.
Prime, you're paying for the free shipping. You're paying for lower prices on your goods, and they also have like the stuff with Whole Foods and everything right now. Amazon is trying to become like your at-home all the things, but they have movies and shows. Like I love BritBox on Amazon because I can just get all my British shows, and I get to pick and choose which ones I add to my list, and then I go. Which is really, really nice. And they have a decent chunk of them.
I don't utilize my Amazon Prime video watching at all.
I do so
I
much
use it
now.
mainly
like,
for
I probably
mailing and
use
getting
it
stuff.
more than Netflix, honestly.
If they would stop charging extra on top of Prime, because we would,
Do they?
we
I thought it
yeah,
was
we picked
included.
up
For
we picked up
certain-
Prime, and then we wanted to watch Doctor Who, but we can't.
For certain things, yes.
Oh yeah, there's
Doctor
certain things
Who
that they don't
is-
have because the fresh ones and that. So
Yeah.
Doctor Who. Well, that's all that we're at is fresh episodes of Doctor Who for,
Right, but
for
that's-
Mariah.
For
the
me,
people
I'm
who
watching
own the
all
rights
old
to
episodes,
Amazon,
so.
they don't.
Right,
have a
old
choice.
episodes are different, but my wife's already caught up.
Right, but I
So
think that
she
they
doesn't
have to
need
wait until they're approved to turn it to free.
Right.
Because if they have to pay for it, then you have to
So,
pay for it.
with all these things going on, with all these different fandoms, with all these different movies coming out, like there's always something on. Like we're at a point of saturation where there's
can't keep
actually
up with
this,
everything.
Yeah, you can't keep up, and there's also a phenomenon that I've experienced a lot where I log on to Netflix and I don't know what I want to watch, and I end up just scrolling for like 2.5 hours through Netflix going, oh, I don't want to watch this, and I don't want to watch that, and I don't want to watch. Like, there's so much that I'm not like I'm super picky now. You know what I mean? And it's funny because I do remember the days when you ran to Blockbuster and picked your 3 favorite videos because it was a Tuesday night and it was 3 for $10 and grabbed them all and ran home and watched one and then the other and then
With,
the other.
with all the Blockbuster people chasing after you going, you have to pay for that!
Exactly.
I don't know how many videos I've ever rented of things I've actually seen before without somebody else having not seen it. But
Yeah.
usually I was looking for the things that I never even heard of that looked interesting. That's how I ended up getting to see Shaolin Popeye Messy Temple Part 2. And Flying
Bless you.
Daggers, not to be confused with House of Flying Daggers, which is a legitimate kung fu film. Flying Daggers is a hilarious comedy kung fu film.
There's
Gotcha.
illegitimate kung fu films?
Those are the ones that are born out of wedlock.
I was just wondering.
So, as comes with boredom and the general oversaturation of the market and us being silly humans, a lot of people have been like super upset and they're like, I don't care that you watch Game of Thrones. Or they're like, I do care that you watch Game of Thrones because I don't. Or I watch Game of Thrones and I hate that you don't. There's been a lot of like ridiculous stuff since the final season is coming up, and I honestly, like, other than boredom, I don't know why.
I saw one friend post a meme that hating on Games of Thrones is now the new veganism. So it's like before, when people say, I'm a vegan, you're like, that's good, I'm still going to eat my hamburger.
Oh my
So
god.
people saying, I hate Game of Thrones, it's like, that's good, I'm still going to watch my Game of Thrones. So.
I mean,
Well, and I was thinking that too. It was like, I actually posted this when Game of Thrones started. I haven't watched Game of Thrones since season 3. That is a remarkably long time ago.
Were there even dragons yet in season 3?
Yeah,
Okay.
but they were very,
Yeah.
very small.
they were teeny.
Um,
That was the last time you see Daenerys naked. Sorry.
So you stopped at the right time, I guess.
yeah, just saying.
Not like there's any other
She
nudity.
signed a new contract. I was so proud of her. She's like, I don't want to show my tits anymore. I was like, go girl.
And everybody was like, oh, well, I'm
Like,
tuning out.
I'm sad, but
And that's the real
go Amelia
reason,
Clark.
because you all know me. That's the real reason I stopped
It's
watching
her
Game
body.
of
She can do
Thrones.
with it what she wants. So I'm glad she signed a new contract saying, I don't like this anymore.
I don't want to show my boobs. End of story.
Done.
Now Daenerys gets
See,
bottomless
I
in
lose,
this scene.
I lose jobs because I have in my
How
contract
did
that
you get through
I have to show them.
Ah! Anyway, yeah, well, that's part of your contract. You
Yeah.
signed it whenever we signed
When
Geek
you
Tank.
want me into something, you have to let me show them.
Yeah, you have to show your boobs.
On topic, we're like halfway through.
Anyway,
So spoilers.
So-
What's your solution
So-
then? Not to care?
well, I mean, so whenever this started, I actually posted on Facebook, happy Game of Thrones Christmas. I was actually really happy for my buddies. All of you guys were all excited and you were all like really revved up, and I'm like, yay, that's cool. It's like the same thing what happened whenever it was Discovery night for me.
Right.
We got the first episode of Discovery coming up, and I'm all geared up. I've got all my Star Trek stuff going. I've got my communicator on. I'm ready to go. I totally get this. You guys can be happy as clams. I'm all about this.
Right. Well, and you guys have been really good with not giving me Discovery spoilers while you're waiting for me to watch it.
They all die in
Because
the
you
end.
know it'll take me a long time to just sit down. And, like, that's what I appreciate. I'm pretty vocal about what I haven't seen, so if people start talking about something, I'm usually pretty vocal that I haven't seen it. When Captain Marvel came out, some friends of mine were really good about telling me, like, hey, I haven't seen it yet, go whisper in the corner. So, we go whisper in the corner. It's the only polite thing to do, to be honest. Now that we're all in, like, this age of nerddom and geekdom where what
Everything's
we
at
have
a different time.
is so cool and saturated and everybody has their own things that they get to watch, I think that the easy societal thing to do is be like, oh, you like that and I don't like that, so I'm gonna make fun of you. And I don't think that's a good intention.
I wonder if they feel in some way, either justified or unjustified, attacked by not being part of that fandom, or
Yeah.
maybe they have that fear of being left out of like, oh, well, I don't have time or an interest in this, but I'll get singled out. So the easiest way for me to deal with this is to become hostile back before I'm hostile towards me or something.
Yeah,
And that sucks.
I don't know.
So I hope that we can change that behavior and say like, hey, you like the thing. I don't really love it, but I'm glad that you're having a good time and
For me,
enjoy,
I
have
intend
fun.
to watch Game of Thrones at some point in time and catch back up.
Well, you've invested into 3 seasons already.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
I'm in 3 seasons, so I kind of do want to see how this all rolls out. But 2 things. One, I really don't care about spoilers. I'm okay it'd be nice if nobody spoils it. But if you guys slip and tell me what happens in the very end, I'll be like, oh, okay. Because I'm not that invested in the story. It's cool, it's interesting, but I don't care that much. I mean, it's not that I don't care, but it's not Star Trek. I'd be really devastated if I found out what happened at the end of Discovery before watching
If
the end of
somebody
Discovery.
spoiled like the first episode of Picard for you,
Right, exactly.
I'd be upset with that.
I'd be like, "Oh, don't do that to me." Of course, I'm also trolling every single Star Trek thread right now, all the time. I don't know what I'm doing to myself. I'm just horrible. But I'm one of those Trekkies, and that's my problem, and that's my cross to bear.
So there's actually a study that was done to why are spoilers bad?
Okay.
And a part of it is asking, well, why do people like stories? And it's because part of our brain, even though we know it's fake, tricks us into thinking it's real. And it's the disbelief. And when we hear the spoiler, it breaks it in our face, says, no, this is fake. And it ruins that part of our brain that says, no, this is a fun ride and it can be real. And that. So
That's why there's such like it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction, right? When you hear spoiler.
it's like a splash of water. It's like, oh, this
Yeah.
bothers me.
It's really rough.
And because
Well,
obviously,
you think about that. That actually kind of makes some sense, right? Oh, look, here's Captain Kirk. He is in danger. The monster is going to kill him. I mean, come on. You think about that intellectually. Is Captain Kirk going to
you
die?
know in your brain
No.
it's not going to
No.
happen.
No.
But you're
But you're still sitting there going, right?
Right.
And you think about that in every episode of every Star Trek episode, like through the and every like, oh, it's Captain Picard, and here's the monster of the week. He's gonna die.
Well, and then when characters
and you know
do
it, but
die,
if somebody came up to you and said
whoa.
he's not gonna die,
Right.
You're like, shut up.
Well, it gets even worse, like in shows like Firefly and Game of Thrones, where you really don't know
Yeah, you really don't.
because they prove, hey, they killed that character, and I thought that character was safe under the blanket rule of how stories are written now. Main characters do not die.
Yeah.
They broke that rule, so now I don't know if this main character is going to die. And when someone spoils that for you, it definitely pulls you out of that disbelief of it being able to go along for the ride.
Which is one of the reasons why I pretty much just always say they all die in the end, is just to make it just blanket.
Keep everything safe.
Because you can't ever tell whether I'm telling the truth or a lie, and you'll never know. And so,
Unless it's Hamlet.
therefore,
Well, like on Facebook lately, people have been talking about Doctor Strange from the last movie, and basically it's just like he's seen 40,000 different possibilities, and he
hasn't
didn't spoil
spoiled it
any
for
of them.
No.
And
He
I
liked Doctor
did
Strange.
really appreciate that. That is kind of spoilery if you think about it. It's a piece of the story, but out of context, I think you should be fine. If not, come yell at me. I'm sorry. But you know, when fans are so geared up to see things, now there's like this pressure, right? Because we have midnight releases, we have the day before releases. Now we have like 7:00 movies the day before,
Right.
that are like 7:00 and then the midnight release. Because a lot of us are getting older now, and we can't stay up till 4 in the morning watching movies, so they're doing them at 7, which is lovely. But there's that pressure to go see it the night it comes out. You have to see it. If you're a true fan, you must see this, and we need to talk about it immediately. But on the other side of that coin, when the new Star Wars movies came out, there was this forum, and you had to essentially confirm that you had seen the movie to enter this forum, and it was a private forum, and they'd let you in, and then you could talk spoilers with other people who had seen the film, and I really enjoyed that. And there have been ones started for like Game of Thrones, there's one for the new Star Wars films, there's one for the MCU films, and these little fan groups are trying to make it better so that people can still talk about it on social media, but they don't have to post it everywhere to spoil
Right.
it for other people, which I think is a great solution, because we have social media, we're all super connected now, so we're still able to connect, but we don't have to ruin it for anybody in any case. And a lot of people who sometimes don't have that outlet, they'll say spoilers ahead, and they will basically space down until they know it's under the cut, and then they'll put everything under the cut, which I think is also really nice, because then you see it, oh, there's spoilers.
well,
Boom.
there's a certain amount of etiquette. Like, but there's also like other problems. For example, like I mean, we've been going through Discovery, and there's been some beautiful, phenomenally gorgeous pictures from the recent episodes of Discovery. And I screenshotted one of them and used it as my desktop on my computer. That's fine. But it suddenly, I didn't even think twice about it until I realized that could be a spoiler. You know, it's not really And after thinking about
I'm assuming
I'm
it's
like,
a ship that nobody's seen yet, if they haven't been keeping up with the show. See, that's my problem. Is
If it's out
I'm
of
really good at
context, you don't
puzzles,
know.
so someone might not think they're spoiling something, but if they give just enough pieces, I'll put
actually,
it together.
It isn't.
Okay.
The answer to your question is no.
Okay.
But the point is that I did that, not even thinking about it, but I'm bringing my family through, well, not my family, I'm bringing my wife through Discovery at this point in time on season 2, and I'm bringing you guys through season 2, well, you and him, through season 2. And
Yeah,
I
where are
realized,
you?
yeah, we're
Fighting.
Well, the finale just went through, so I'll watch it now.
yeah, but where are you on Discovery? Are you actually close to the finale?
No, I'm
She
not
hasn't
even
started
through
yet.
season 2.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
start it till it's done.
Oh,
You
gotcha.
just need to stop fight night and come hang out at our place on Fridays.
I'm sorry, I have to fight.
Okay.
I
Have to fight. She has to fight. Fight or flight. But anyway, and it's one of those. But it's for me. You know, I really love the picture, and it's like it's not fair to say, well, yeah, but
But
God, you can't do that until everybody's seen this, and then it's like, oh,
I mean, are you the only one who sees it? Is it like your home desktop?
yeah, it's my home desktop.
Yeah, but Mariah's the one he's worried about seeing it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and technically Kevin's in that room too. I mean, he comes into that room all the time too.
Okay.
Now,
So it's nice
I
that
had
you're...
chosen a couple of other pictures, and this is the one that's probably the most benign and not giving away any plot. There are some other ones that I could have easily done that would have been markedly more spoilery. And I probably will flip through some of those later once everybody has gone through the entire thing. You know, the one where everybody dies. That one, specifically.
So here's the thing that I have started doing now, especially with films and TV shows, unless I'm binge watching a TV show. I don't like watching trailers for movies anymore. And I don't like watching trailers for on the next episode.
They give away too much.
Because they edit it and they set a precedence, they set a tone. And sometimes that actually doesn't fit the movie or the film at all. Like Captain Marvel specifically gave away some of the funnier parts of the film. So I have not seen any of the Avengers Endgame trailers. I will continue to not see them. I will just go see the movie. And I will enjoy the movie. I don't want to see trailers anymore because somebody's editing that for it to appeal to a certain audience that isn't the main target audience of the film, obviously, because they've got to pull them in. And I consider that spoilery because you get to that funny scene and you lose that laugh. You get that laugh once. So why not enjoy it in the theater with the rest of the film? So unless I'm like sitting in a movie theater ready to see the film, I try to avoid trailers as much as possible. I haven't seen the new Star Wars trailer. Do
Wouldn't
not
it be-
spoil it.
It takes place with Star Wars.
Yes. But I didn't
it has
bother to see
laser
it. Everybody's
swords.
like, oh, I'm crying so hard. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll watch it after I watch the film.
Laser swords.
So there was a study done that says a recent study found that people who hated or heard the spoiled version of a short story liked it more than those who heard the unspoiled version of the short story. And so what they were piecing together from that is that the study overlooked a key factor, and that was people only care about spoilers for stories they feel invested in.
Yeah.
So a short story you never heard of, hearing the spoiler from it is not nearly as devastating as hearing the spoiler for the last Star Wars film. Or
Exactly.
in-game.
That's why, like,
Everybody dies in the end.
when Tyler and I are doing something, like if we're playing a game and we know the other one wants to play that game, we're like, are you okay with spoilers if I play this? And they're like, no, and then we'll play it in a different room. You know, we're very communicative that way, where if like I'm not super invested in a show, like right now Tyler's watching Lucifer, and it's a great show, it's super fun, but I don't want to watch every single episode.
Here's a comedy version called Reaper. You should check out.
Yeah. I don't like the middle episodes where like nothing happens of cop dramas. I just want to watch the main episodes where the main plot is advanced. So he'll watch like 5 episodes and then have me watch 1. And then just explain the in-between.
Oh, so get rid of the bottled
Totally.
episodes.
Totally fine with that. Because I don't want the episodes of fluff.
Right.
I don't want the boring character development episodes. Because I
So
don't really
I did
care.
have a friend on Facebook who actually said he prefers spoilers because he has an anxiety issue. And that he gets too anxious not knowing certain things in certain stories.
Okay.
And
That makes sense.
I thought that was interesting. As I was trying to piece it together in my brain, I was like, well, it's like your jump scares.
Yep.
If you looked at a big twist in a film as being the same as a jump scare, you'd much rather know it's coming.
Much rather, yeah. I mean,
they,
and as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, I could see that. Yeah, I could
And they-
Yeah, that
totally.
sounds-
They also use it as the that spoiler tells me this is a crappy movie, so I don't want to watch it. So they might not watch something because they didn't like the spoiler that they heard,
Yeah.
which is a totally different way than I think. Because to me, it's all about the reveal. But it's the reveal is a one-time enjoyment and of its own type of creature.
Right.
So once I'm only going to get that once. It's like your first time finding out Tyler Durden. That's all I'm going to say there.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't ruin my experience of watching it other times.
Okay.
It's still fun. It's like
I don't know why Tyler's dirty, but that's
you
all
don't.
right.
But obviously people wouldn't rewatch a movie again
That's between
if
you and him.
only knowing.
And that's it.
But
Or
that's why
reread
people like
books.
reread books, right? Like my mom,
Your mom.
reads Stephen King like all the time, and she'll go back and read them, and she still feels just as terrified as the first
Right,
time.
but there was
because
an
it's
extra
building up
little-
to that moment. You know what I mean? So now you have more information. You're looking and getting different parts of the story.
There's a different type of enjoyment. Yeah, you're spotting the clues. Like if you watch Discovery, if you get through it the first time and we're willing to watch it the second time, which I think if you get through it the first time, you will want to watch it a second time. There are things there that you couldn't have possibly have caught. But now that you know the thing at the end, you can go back and spot all these little things that are setting it up.
Yeah.
And season 2 is definitely a lot of setup, just like it was with season 1. They're doing the same House of
I mean,
Cards.
It's the same reason why video games have so much replayability. Is because there are different elements that you start to spot, or different pieces of the sub story that you get, or different quests that you choose to do on the side. You know, so it's very interesting to see.
The motor pool is really into your hair.
For those of you who are listening and not watching,
Yeah,
we
the motor pool
live
is
broadcast.
very, very much into Chelsea's
Well,
hair.
thank you. I'm starting to grow it out, so we're gonna see what my actual natural hair color is for the first time in 10 years.
Yep. So as I was saying, we are live broadcasting on Tuesday nights. If you're listening to this,
You should
on our-
join
you
us.
can come.
And apparently,
on
Guy named our
Facebook.com.
fans the motor pool. Well done.
And it's
shop.
you can come look at Chelsea's hair.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the other things that, oh man, I had a thought and then I just it went south. And I don't know where it went.
Wee.
Yeah, I was out there somewhere. We were talking about, I got sidetracked by your hair. Because when we were talking a little bit about, earlier we were talking about the idea and the concept of,
Jump scares.
yeah, jump scares and
The anxiety of not knowing.
anxiety of not knowing, yes. Oh, I was watching The Expanse, and I was realizing that on replay, because I'm rewatching third season in preparation for them starting up fourth season, because they've moved all of fourth season over to Amazon Prime and everything like that. So I'm all getting prepped and geared up for my fourth season of Expanse. And I realized that the entire sequence that they did with the Razorback, which makes only sense if you've ever watched this, is such a phenomenal sequence that it was just so much fun to watch again.
Okay.
And I was like, this is such a good thing. Why, thank you. See, we have lovely hair too.
Yeah. See, I try not to do that to our listeners.
So,
without them knowing.
I understand, but we're being, the motor pool has said that we have lovely hair too.
Aw, so sweet.
There we go.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anyway, there was a sequence in The Expanse with the Razorback, which is a ship. And the way that The Expanse is set up is it's a very realistic show. So the show is extraordinarily realistic. It's a very high pressure scene. There's no reason to go into high detail about it, but it's a very high pressure, high stress scene. And the way that the scene is shot, it's very, very, very intense. And the Razorback's a racer. It's a race.
Okay.
It's a race ship.
That sounds right.
So it separates from the ship and it's like moving along and trying to escape. And everything's happening very intensely. And you're cutting back and forth to the heroes inside the Razorback as they're trying to survive the high G maneuvers that this racer is doing. And I was like, it's still a very intense scene, even though I know how this scene ends. And I was like, this is such a fun scene to watch. And I'm like, this is why I rewatch things that happen in The Expanse, is because
But there was definitely a difference in the first time and the rewatch. The rewatch is still entertaining, but that first time had a different zest to it.
It did, even though I've read the books, where I know what happened to the Razorback and knew what happened to the characters that were on board the Razorback, and I knew, you
You knew
what,
that they were going to be faithful to the book.
and I knew that they were all going to die, because everybody dies in the end.
Shakespeare. So what do we do though for like our kids? Because when we were discussing this between ourselves on our message board, I
That was the
mentioned how
point.
my kiddo is too young to watch Game of Thrones right now.
And he's too young for my kid's too young for Discovery.
An Expanse,
And
especially if they're dropping
There was
F-bombs.
actually
Definitely too young for The Expanse. Oh my god!
There was an interesting thread when the last Avengers came out, and it was talking to parents
My
about
wife is too young for Expanse.
watching the film and bringing their kids to see this film. And one lady was like, "Oh, I didn't see it in advance because it's a superhero theme, so I thought it would be fine and there would be a happy ending." And
A
so,
lot of people did that with Deadpool too.
right, even though they said don't bring your kids,
Yes.
I'm mad about that.
Ryan Reynolds even
Yeah.
did public
So
service
many
announcements. Don't
PSAs.
bring your kids.
So many PSAs. But there was a thread where a lot of parents went to see the film in advance and they explained exactly what's happening to their children who are in that like 8 to 12 range, who are that younger range that might almost be able to watch it, but they might be a little bit heartbroken. And just explaining and talking about it afterwards to see if they were comfortable. Like, do you actually want to see this? Because I need to
Bad
talk you
things
through
happen.
a couple things that are going to happen, and you're going to be really upset. And so we need to talk about these things in advance and afterwards as well. And so these kinds of things are very interesting because when I was a kid, my parents liked to talk to me a lot about things that were happening in films. They generally kept it age appropriate, but like for a film like this, which is so big, which is a superhero film and it's great, and everybody wants to see it, of course your little one wants to see it. And I actually had that film spoiled for me on accident.
Well,
by
there's
my
a lot of
coworker.
jokes going around based off of the spoilers,
Mm-hmm.
so it was really hard to not have it spoiled
Right.
with all of the Dustbuster jokes and
But
such.
I think it makes sense to have like one of the parents go see it first and then
It's
talk
so
amongst
hard
each
to
other
get a
and watch
parent
it.
to do that. I mean,
That is a level of dedication.
I make a point of it because I know I'm going to enjoy it a second time. But if
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't into the genre, then I could see being really put out saying I have to go spend 2 hours, or in this case, 3 hours and 1 minute to watch a movie that I
Well, in
might have to
that
watch
case,
again.
like, why not send a friend
There's
and talk to your friends?
on
about it?
IMDb, a lot of times they have a little section called Parent Info, and it's other parents review it, and they give it a rating based on the violence, on the sex, on the drug and drug use content, drug and
That's
alcohol use content.
super
It's actually
handy.
really useful because I've used it before. Because believe it or not, the remake or whatever it was of The Ring was PG-13.
Oh my god.
And Nick's friend was 13 and he's 12, and she was trying to get him to go see that, and I said, I really don't think you want to see that if it's anything like the other ones, because sure, it's a PG-13, but I think it's going to give you nightmares.
Yeah.
And I looked up the description in the little thingy, and I was reading it off to him, and he's like, yeah, I don't think I want to see that. I'm like, good call. You know, wait
Cool.
until, because you're not me. Very
Right.
few people are me who can seek out that stuff and enjoy it and not be disturbed by it.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely as a parent, you should do your research, especially on Deadpool.
Well, and I think that humans are humans. Like, yeah, they are. I mean, I don't. There are certain movies I don't seek out. We've talked about this a number of times.
Sure.
And there are certain movies that, like my wife, like I was saying, I mean, The Expanse, as wonderful as it is, has a few scenes that are way past my wife's threshold of no.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
I mean, there's just scenes, and they are critical to the plot.
Mm-hmm.
They were horrible in the book. They were horrible in the show.
Right. But
And
you
they're
still got to get
critical
through
to the plot. They're vital. And it's one of those that you can't really cut them out. You can't take them away.
You can't make it
You
nicer.
can't make it nice. It would be like if a movie was based around the horrible rape of a woman. You can't take that out.
Sure.
The whole movie's based around it. You can't gloss it over. You can't
It's there
take it
in
away.
the
It's
forefront
part
the
of
entire
it.
time. Yeah.
You don't have to glorify it. but you can't take it away. So, some of the things that happen in The Expanse are pretty nasty, but they're critical. It's there. Have you ever read the Ender's Game series?
Yeah, a long time ago.
The second book was Speaker of the Dead, right? The aliens that were in that book
Spoiler alert.
were little teddy bears, right?
Yeah.
And they were getting disemboweled,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that was critical to the story. And if you made a movie about it, you'd have disemboweled teddy bears,
Right.
right? I mean,
Right.
And how would you then take your kid to Ender's Game 2, right?
Electric
You're ending
Boogaloo.
up with disemboweled teddy bears.
I think a big thing is that each child is an
Disemboweled
individual, and
Ewoks.
each child has a different threshold and tolerance in particular. Even now, me as a person, we watched Outlander, and I knew this horrific torture scene was coming up at the end of season 1, and I did end up watching through it, and I ground my teeth and I cried a lot. I was not okay with it at all. I did not have a good time after. I slept very poorly for a couple months. I knew what I was getting into because I had been told beforehand, but I have not watched the series since. It is that bad taste in the back of my throat that I just can't handle, and it is a critical part of the story, but I can't handle it.
How do we protect our kids not from the graphic details, but from spoilers? Is where I was trying to go, because it's like
Right.
one of the big questions in Game of Thrones is who's going to take the Iron Throne. He's not going to get to see the series before that's answered.
Right.
So
Right. And maybe
it's
that
one of
just
those things
becomes a
that-
discussion of like this came out before you were able to watch it. Because I had that happen with like a lot of different shows that I watch now.
well, it's going to change societies. The next generation down is going to have to learn to either not care about spoilers or how to be properly trained in etiquette to ask, have you seen this?
Yeah.
And then I was wondering if there's a connection. I know that everybody's grandmother, your grandmother, has probably done this, and I catch my peers doing it when watching a
peers,
game show. They'll ask a question, and the people in the room want to shout out the answer.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's part of the same mind that's connected to spoilers. Of like, hey, this person dies in the show, even though you haven't
Yeah, it's
seen it.
almost like you have to prove that you're
that,
smart.
that you know
Dude,
something.
the
Yeah.
Harry Potter spoiler at the 6th book release. You remember that guy driving by? There's a clip. I'm not going to spoil it because some people honestly have not read the books or seen the films. But the 6th book was spoiled at premiere night. This guy just drove by with thousands of fans and released the biggest spoiler of the book. And people were pissed. I would have been pissed. We
Yeah.
were waiting for the books. Like we want to read the entire story. Having that like, ooh,
It's been weaponized. Spoilers
it
have
is
been
weaponized. Yeah. So
Oh, that's
I mean,
brutal.
for future generations, yes, they are going to need to learn to ignore spoilers, or they need to learn not to care about things that they do care about. With all of these things, they do fall out of fashion and come back in. So they honestly might never hear about it.
Well, it was kind
We don't know.
It kind of came up because when I was making a joke about Rosebud, Tara actually said, "Be
Rosebud.
careful not to spoil it because Nick might want to watch the movie someday."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't even think about that because it's so much part of our culture to make
It is
fun
of that particular spoiler.
Yeah.
So
Well, and if people haven't seen
those of
things and they're like,
those-
"What are you talking about?" Then it's the joy of like, "I'm going to show you a thing."
Right.
And I'm sorry I gave you a spoiler, but you don't even know yet. So.
For
There's
those of
that
you
too.
who are talking about it, and the Motor Pool is talking about it too, that's Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game series. Second book is Speaker of the Dead. Third book is Xenocide. They're good books. Orson Scott Card, I don't know, he's gotten kind of weird in the recent
Yeah,
years.
he's gotten weird.
Sorry, I don't really, but his books are solid. But the original trilogy was Ender's Game, Speaker of the Dead, and Xenocide, and I really highly recommend those three.
So-
The other ones, the Shadow of the Hegemon series and stuff like that, those are
Gotta
side
catch 'em all.
stories. Those are all side stories, but
But
the
you can
original
still do that.
trilogy is those three.
So in this age of oversaturation of media, to the point where we're so connected, it's ridiculous. I think there's no way to really avoid spoilers completely. There's always going to be something out there that catches you off guard. I have friends who go social media silent, is what they call it. They go social media silent, and they let everybody know who's into that specific show or movie. Like my friends run a reaction channel for BTS, so if comeback stuff is happening and they're gonna react to it, I don't post anything on their feed, or I'll chat with certain friends who are outside of that group.
Because you said that they actually tell a story in their music, so that could be spoiled for you.
Exactly.
And we
So
learned
I
last
make
week
sure to
that
leave
comeback
it,
does
like,
not mean the same thing here as it does in Korea.
pure as
See
possible.
last week.
Because you have photo sets, you have comics, you have videos, you have teasers.
Wow.
So they go through the
I've
whole
been coming
gambit.
up with new things such as Bake the Salmon, ways to help me remember it's BTS, not BTO, which is Bachman Turner Overdrive that we learned.
Just remember,
is where my brain was going last week.
Bang,
So
Tan,
Bake the Salmon.
Sonyeondan.
No, I cannot remember. I can remember Bake the Salmon. I can remember, Buy the Steak. Stuff
Buy
like
the
that.
Steak.
Buy the Steak.
it might be easier because their name is also Bulletproof Boy Scouts. Think Bulletproof Toy Scouts. That might help.
Steak sticks in my brain better.
But regardless, people are pretty communicative now, and people are learning to communicate better, especially in this age of like cool stuff like the MCU, like big reveals, like big movies coming out. So
Well, and the plots are
People are getting
really
better.
detailed.
thank God.
You're going to have to get caught
Things
up
are getting
because
boring.
this last big controversy, without spoiling anything, really dealt with agency perfectly.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, this is horrible." I'm like, "This was the best I've ever seen this dealt with."
Yeah, actually,
Well-
I was upset about it at first, but
And then you realize this was done really well.
that's fine. It works. So,
Well, and it's the same thing with Discovery. We've got a whole bunch of amazing stuff.
for sure.
catch up.
And I'm like so proud because we sat through all of season 1, and season 1 of Discovery gets so intense, and you did not spoil a single moment.
You're welcome.
That's tough, man. Just be a good friend.
I will
Be
say
like
that season 2 has had a writing speed bump that bothered me, but it's still a good show.
Gotcha.
It's just one thing where I'm like, this is pulling me out of the situation, the moment.
Okay,
But
Mm-hmm.
I
anyways,
will. There is one spoiler that I will give for Discovery season 2, which is it was written by anime writers. So deep breath, people, deep breath.
It's a style choice.
their eyes get really big, and tears start flowing like rivers.
But it's definitely interesting to see
You'll
how
know what I mean by that whenever you watch
So
it.
without spoiling the spoiler, what's the spoiliest spoiler that you've had spoiled for you? Because for me it was almost, but not quite, because I only cared a little bit, was The Walking Dead. That when I was on a different time zone, and then AMC
yeah.
released a picture
That
of the
was
big thing.
brutal.
I'm like, don't they realize it hasn't aired here yet? And
That was pretty brutal.
luckily I was kind of prepared for anyone to buy it in that. But
the last Avengers movie, a couple of the deaths were spoiled for me, and also I was really upset. American Horror Story, when I was super into it, I got like a huge spoiler rant,
no.
and it took me like halfway through for them to get to the point and then name American Horror Story, and I was like,
I've seen like 3
and I was
episodes.
literally getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch the episodes before work, and that was the one day I didn't,
Oh no.
and so I was pissed.
I got all the spoilers from Harry Potter, the ones that you're talking about. I got all of those, and I tried to avoid them. But I was the big books that came out happened when I was in Japan,
Oh.
and so,
So you
it
were
was
behind
I
for
was
that.
behind because the books didn't come over to Japan for 2 weeks, and so we were 2 weeks late, and so the net was already chattering before we could get. I mean, we could get Japanese copies, but nobody could read Japanese that fast.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
we were. I mean, there was the English copies took 2 weeks to get over there, and they were huge. Deathly Hollows was massive. It
Oh
was
my
like you
God.
could kill somebody with that thing.
Deathly Hollows got thrown across the room about 55 times.
Yeah.
I was so angry with that book.
Okay, so don't tell my kid you said that. Okay,
was
guys.
So you can write to us and tell us about your most spoiler moment at
Questions at RockyMountainGeekTank.com.
You can also drop a post on our Facebook Live feed if you want to engage with us directly, and we can answer those there. So we'll probably put a private post that says, what's the most spoilery thing that's ever been spoiled? And we can discuss there.
Yep. So that's all pretty much we've got at this point.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week with more goodness, but we're running out of seasons, so just be aware of that. We're coming up on the end of the season. We don't broadcast during the summer, so you're aware. So just so you guys are aware, we only broadcast during the school year.
Right, and we'll
Because-
post the convention schedule up as well.
Yeah, we'll be at conventions and stuff like that. We'll still be broadcasting. We'll just be broadcasting weird.
Different
Yeah.
schedule, and we'll still be putting out content, but some of it will be pre-recorded stuff.
Yep, and we'll still be on our Facebook page and things like
Yes,
that.
so you can always message us and talk to us there.
Definitely. And if you have suggestions for next season, if there's something you'd like us to talk about, to bring to the forefront, if something happens over the summer and you really want us to cover it, just drop us a line there, or you can always email us again at questions@RockyMountainGeekTank.com.
Yep. We'll tell you when we're running out of the schedule. I think we're going to be running out at the end of May, but we're not sure yet.
We'll figure it out.
We haven't figured it out
We
yet.
got
We
you.
haven't. We were still discussing it, and then we were like, "Uh-oh."
You still have
it's
at least
time-
a few more episodes.
Yeah,
So,
you
yeah.
still got a few more episodes though.
But keep posted because sorry, I'm dying. It's the end of the night. But keep your eyes on the Facebook page because we will post the Starfest schedule this week. We are still it's the beginning of the con schedule, so we're starting to gain our feet again and get that schedule out. And it's been, again, very busy for all of us. So just give us a little bit of space. Forgive us a little bit. We'll get that to you as soon as we can.
Okay, that's all the time we have for today. I've been Guy.
I've been Troy.
And I've been Chelsea.
And this is Geek Tank.
As always, you can email us at questions@RockyMountainGeekTank.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We're Rocky Mountain Geek Tank. Feel free to join the conversation. We look forward to hearing from you.
Geek Tank is a production of Foxblade Media and is protected under the Creative Commons 3.0 license. Your hosts today were Guy S. Davis, C. Troy Floor, and Chelsea Kramer. Kevin Weibler is our engineer, and our music was composed by David Coyle. Geek Tank is funded by listeners like you. Please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Foxblade.